Welcome to the Christy Jones Show. This is your go-to podcast for living life to the fullest. I am a life and empowerment coach, speaker, and business owner in multifamily real estate. I am a woman passionate about helping others build a life that they truly desire. We'll talk about how to make the most out of every day, from setting meaningful goals to embracing the present moment. So join us as we explore the depths of living a life that is full of joy, purpose, and satisfaction. Well, hello and welcome back, my friend, to another episode of the Christy Jones Show. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic today. I've titled this episode, Don't Fear Reinventing Yourself. And here's why I want to dive into this today. So my birthday is coming up. And as I approach my birthday, I generally go into this thought process of where I do a lot of thinking about what I like about where I'm at in this stage of my life, and then what else I would like to change or reinvent. And so, probably by the time this podcast episode goes live, my birthday will have already happened. I'm recording this a little earlier in the month of August, but I'm turning 53 this month. And so I have this opportunity to look at the second half of my life. And I think that's really exciting. I've actually been doing that for quite some time. When I was around 49, 50, I was like, okay, this is like this is like halftime. This is a halftime show. And so, but I mean, 52, I still kind of approach each birthday with that same kind of mindset of like, I have so much left in my life. So what do I want that to look like? So I want to talk about don't fear reinventing yourself. I think when I talk about like reinventing of oneself or leaning into change, that sometimes that can stir up a little uncomfortable feelings within a person when I'm like, hey, let's talk about reinventing ourselves. People are like, whoa, hang on. I'm good. Like I'm in this good place. Like I'm all comfy. Life's great. And that is, I too have felt that way and have been in those spaces where it's like everything is just, feels good. It's like, why rock the boat? Let's just cruise, just ride this out. And while that is a nice experience, it's also nice to look at what else is there to experience in my life. And I'm not talking about, it doesn't have to be like huge, drastic things. I'm not talking a complete upheaval of something. I'm just saying it is really exciting to look at your life and think about things that you could add in, things that you maybe want to, no longer do because it doesn't bring you joy. It doesn't fulfill you anymore. It's not really the way that you want to show up in the world anymore. So I really feel like it's productive for us to not fear reinventing ourselves and also getting really comfortable with leaning into change. Now, to lean into change, I mean to like explore the different ways that you want to show up in the world. That's another way to say it. Leaning into change is like exploring the ways that you can show up in your world in a different way and kind of like shed new light on something, if that makes sense. So we have to be open to reinventing ourselves if we want to stay in that constant process of growth and not be stagnant. Because when we kind of hit up that stagnant plateau, while that is kind of like what I call cruise control, it's really, in my opinion, it's like really not challenging ourselves. We're really not exploring all that's possible. Now, can your life be completely amazing and you not reinvent yourself or look at a new identity, lean into change? Absolutely. Absolutely. Life can still be amazing if you choose not to reinvent yourself or you choose not to lean into change. I'm just kind of wanting to open the conversation that, well, but what if that seems appealing to you? What if you feel that stirring up inside that you've got more, that you can do more, you can learn more, you can be more, you can give more? Does that make sense? So it doesn't mean that this is the only way to live life to the fullest, that you have to be constantly reinventing yourself. You don't. But I want to offer this concept to you that it is also an amazing life to have all kinds of experiences in your lifetime because you're exploring the different parts of yourself. You're exploring what you're truly capable of. You're kind of pushing the envelope to see, like, well, this is an interest I have. I need to explore that. I need to lean into that. This is a career that I'm wanting to pursue. I want to look into this, but I've done this other thing my entire life. So maybe I should stay here. You see what I'm saying? So I want to encourage you that you don't have to be fearful if you're wanting to, what I call, reinvent yourself. Try something new, lean into change. So leaning into change is exploring the different ways that you want to show up in the world during your lifetime. And again, this has been heavy on my brain because as I approach my 53rd birthday, although I'm constantly doing this, but I really do this, press into this hard as I get close to a birthday, because I'm like, well, am I doing the things right now that I feel are the ways that I want to move forward in my life right now? Is there anything else that I want to learn? Is there anything else I want to explore, to try, that I'm curious about? Another great way to describe it is, what are you curious about? A lot of times we're curious about things that we want to know a little more about. So what are you curious about? Lean into the things that you're curious on and explore that. So when you lean into change, or maybe what is new for yourself, you open up your whole world to what could be. And so to lean into change is really, consider it like just kind of, you're cracking open that door. So maybe you have always, moved through the world in a certain way, in a certain identity, like whatever role. And when I say identity, it's like the roles that we serve. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could be, in a relationship, you could be a wife, you could be a mother, a father. I mean, you could be a parent. You could be a parent of small children. So that's like a role that you're showing up and fulfilling and doing and being. You're being who you are, serving in that way. In your career, I mean, a lot of times we have a way we identify ourselves within the work that we do. So that's another identity, another role that we serve in our lifetime. So I'm just saying, don't fear reinventing yourself. Don't fear cracking that door open just a little bit, taking a peek through and saying, I'm curious about this within me. I'm curious if I could start moving in this other direction and go down an entirely different career path. I'm wondering if I live where I live now, but what if, when I'm an empty nester, what if I wanted to move to an entirely different state? What would that look like for me? So those are the type of things that I encourage you to explore. I think I was sitting here thinking before I came on to record this episode, and I thought, when did I start to really learn to lean into change? And so it's kind of, I'm going to be 53 soon, like I said. So I've got a lot of years to go back and ponder. So it took me a minute because I notice a pattern in my life that I like change. I desire change. I'm not, I'm not like always that person that wants the full little comfort security package thing. I've always, my personality, or as I call it my personality, but how I've shown up in the world is I've really enjoyed when change shows up in my life. Now, there is some change that when I think of change that really gets kind of thrown in our face, right? And I was thinking about when my dad passed away. I didn't like that change. I didn't like that change one bit. That was a really hard change to go through. But for the majority of things in my life, the changes that come about, although sometimes uncomfortable, there's a part of me that feels ready. It's like excited for it. That because I know on the other side of change is possibility. So I started thinking, okay, when was the first time that I resisted change, but then it ended up being something way better than I could have ever imagined. And so maybe I was trying to figure out like where my wiring kind of got set so that from, when I was a teenager forward, I really looked forward to change. I didn't fear reinventing myself. I ended up in this space where I found it exciting and I looked forward to it. So I went back to a time, I think I was 13 going on 14, I'm pretty sure. But my family, my parents are originally from Southern California. And before I started kindergarten, we had moved to a small town in Oklahoma, in central Oklahoma. And that was a huge change for them, obviously. But that was a dream that they had, to buy land and, have this wholesome country, lifestyle and raise their kids in small town America. And so my younger years were spent and it was fabulous. It was in the 70s. I mean, I was, tomboy, loved living in the country, loved doing all the things. And it was a great experience. I had just a really great childhood. But then we came across some financial difficulties. There's if you've lived long enough, you remember the 80s, you remember everything going south in the oil business. My dad was in construction. So, people were just walking out of their homes, and my dad built homes. He had gone into business for himself. So many, many, many families were affected by the economic downturn in the early 80s. And as a result, my dad went back to Southern California to find work and lived there for a while, for like 6 months, and then, sent money home. And then when the school year ended, then Dad got my mom and my brother and sister and moved us all out to Southern California. Now, I thought my world was coming to an end because I had all those friends that I had grown up with, and that's the age where you think like, this is like your whole life, right? And, I was really embedded in sports, and, we had softball and basketball and, the teammates that I had. And I was devastated when I learned that we had to move to sunny Southern California. But it was really a hard time. I was devastated. So we make the move. And I mean, we basically had to make the move. I mean, we were in really, really tough financial times. And first of all, side note, my mom and dad are rock stars, because now, being the age that I am, when I look back to where they were, what hard choices they had to make and how fabulous they handled everything, and they found a way. They found a way. And I look back on that time and I just have so much pride, and I get all emotional when I think about it, because to be in a financial hard spot like that and to find your way out is really it's a hard thing. It's a really, really hard thing. And I'm so lucky that they set an amazing example for me on how you trudge through those times. So we get out to Southern California, and I think my world's just come to an end, right? Until I started leaning into the change, until I started, I had the little teenager attitude right at first, like, this sucks, my life's over, blah, blah, blah. But that time, say at 14, that taught me so much in that huge transition, because we basically had lost everything, meaning from a financial standpoint, and we had to start over. And then I'm in a place that I have to start completely over at 14, which felt really insurmountable at the time. But what that taught me was that's the time that my brain goes back to, that's when I learned that leaning into the change, that ended up completely changing the trajectory of my life when we moved there. And it ended up being some of the most amazing years. And I am so eternally grateful that that change happened for me, that my family uprooted and went there because of all the experiences and everything that came from that major move. And I ended up absolutely loving it. And it was literally it was just such a big lesson for me that on the other side of discomfort, on the other side of change, is an opportunity for so much expansion, so many new experiences. And so everything that I feared, really, it was all made up in my head. So that's what I go back to. When did that little switch flip for me? And that's when it happened. That's when it happened that early on. And that's when I learned lean into change, because something amazing is on the other side of that. So that's kind of served me, that's kind of been my process through the other experiences of my life, that when those uncomfortable tension moments come up, that I automatically go, I just kind of automatically lean more into change. So again, let me reemphasize that your life can be amazing either way. If you choose to change, or you choose to reinvent parts of yourself, or if you choose not to, either way, your life can be just completely amazing. You can have more opportunity to experience more things, experience more parts of yourself, if you are not fearful of reinventing yourself, if you do lean into change. But your life can be amazing either direction. But I just offer this as a conversation. If you are a person that wants to really experience all the things that you can in this lifetime, and you're curious about what else you can learn, what else you can do, then know that you have the option to reinvent yourself at any given point, at any time. I mean, you could do it today. You can do it in 6 months. You could do it on a certain birthday if you want to. But it doesn't have to be a big announcement. You can make those choices to reinvent any part of yourself at any given time. So a few things, a few examples, I think that I'd like to share on, reinvention or leaning into change. What that's looked like in my life has been, after I told you about the one incident when we moved, then, when I was 19, I decided, college wasn't really the path for me. I was really having a hard time working, paying for school, paying for my apartment, all the things. And I just wasn't driven. I was so bored to tears sitting in the classroom. So I had like a year, I believe, of at a junior college. And then I wanted to be a flight attendant. And so I went and got a job as a flight attendant and had a ball, had such a good time, and had so many enhanced experiences because I wasn't fearful of reinventing myself and seeing what was next. Moving all across, I decided, if I was never fearful of picking up and moving to another state. There was a time I was in Oklahoma and I decided I was going to drive across country and go back out to California and live there. And so, yeah, I just did it. I just made up my mind and I did it. I didn't have a lot of fears. I didn't, come up with all the excuses. I just leaned into the change. Same when I was in the apartment industry in my career, as far as I was new in the apartment industry at 26, but I leaned into that change. I really poured myself into everything I could become in that career. I became, first time I was a business owner, entrepreneur was at 32 and started a property management company, leaned into change, leaned into reinventing myself. Decided that I wanted to have that experience. So I went for that. Being an empty nester, if you find yourself at a point where you're an empty nester, you have, decisions to make. What do you want that season of your life to look like? I know for my husband and I, we talked about, my son was in college and I think it was around his sophomore year, we talked about, selling our house and buying in a different neighborhood, buying a different type of house, a bigger house or whatever, and decided against that, decided to remodel our existing house. And we decided that we wanted part of our empty nest experience. We wanted to go back and purchase a second home in Southern California. We're both from California, so we have roots there as well. And so we made that decision and said, what do we want that season of our life to look like? And so we made some decisions and we leaned in to the changes there. Even on your health, your wellness, your fitness. Do you want to reinvent yourself there? Do you want to lean into change there? I think I would say I was in my late 40s, mid 40s, and I wanted to kind of revamp some things. I wanted to challenge myself fitness wise. By the time I was 49, I was 48, 49. I was really pressing harder into that area, learning more, changing up my program, challenging my body in a different way. And I've, started on a path where I was very focused on balanced fitness and functional fitness. And that became a big priority for me. So I didn't fear the reinvention of myself when it came to my health and wellness and my fitness. I leaned into that change. So I'm giving you some examples because I'm telling you these stories because there might be one or two that resonates with you that you're like, yeah, I've been thinking about that as well. So reinvention of oneself takes courage. It takes patience, and it takes curiosity. It takes curiosity of going, I wonder what's possible here, and not being afraid to explore that. A lot of times we don't want to reinvent ourselves or explore another identity within ourselves or another role that we might serve in this lifetime because we get real comfortable and we decide to just settle with where we are, settle with the roles and the identity that I've given myself. I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I mean, I can go through the laundry list just like you, right? You think of your life, you think of all the different roles that you serve in, the different identities of how you show up in the world, right? And you probably, if you've done those for a while, you're probably really good at them. And you feel like you've got a groove going. You're in sync, you feel really confident, honestly. If you've had the same career for quite some time, you're feeling really confident in that. Anything that we do over and over and over, we have more confidence in our ability because we have a proven track record. So we can get very, very comfortable very quickly. And just because we are comfortable at something or we're really good at something, it doesn't mean that we can't continue to evolve and look at what other experiences that we can have in this lifetime. Our roles can change, our identity changes. Just in parenting, for instance, you go through, if you have children, you're raising kids, got a house full, you've got really all your activities, you're just are focused around, maybe what the stage and the phase that your child's in, right? And then one day that comes to a close. And that, if you've heard me talk about empty nester, I mentioned it earlier in the episode. But then your role, it kind of shifts, it changes. So your day-to-day functions are entirely different. So you want to be thinking of how do you then want to show up in the world? I mean, you can't show up in the exact same way because you're not doing carpool anymore. You can't show up in the same way because you're not going to PTA meetings. You can't show up in the exact same way because you're not needed in the exact same way. So how can you reinvent yourself? How can you, what other experiences can you give yourself in that next phase? So it can be, let's say you're single and your routines and how you show up in the world it's in a certain way. And then you get in a relationship and then you want to start doing different things. You almost start reinventing yourself, right? To show up in the world in a different way. So that pattern happens over and over in our life. But often what happens is people will get to a certain point in their life, such as if you are coming up on a milestone birthday, then they'll say, well, I'm just going to ride this out for the rest of my life. What I'm offering is you don't have to do that. You can continually reinvent yourself if you want to have a variety of experiences in your life. You might want to live in a different state. You might decide that if you're married, you and your husband, you want to split your time between two locations. Part of the year here, part of the year there. You might decide that you don't want to do that. That it's not, you thought it sounded great, but in actuality, it doesn't really fit your person. It doesn't really fit what you want to do. There's other things to that you're like, it's not worth it. I don't want to mess with it. Maybe you could be like my mom, who at 64, and not by choice, she definitely wished this wasn't the case, but she became a widow at 64 when my dad passed. I mean, that's like it's forced upon you. You can't move forward in the world in the exact same identity that you then served, because with her, she did a great job of reinventing herself. It took time, but she reinvented herself and continues to have amazing experiences in life. So I find it exciting to contemplate the second half of life and all that is possible. And I look at things like, and ask myself, how can I contribute more to other people? How can I challenge myself more? How can I meet more people? How can I meet new people? How can I also build more on my existing relationships? How can I pour more into those? Overall, I like to say and ask myself, how can I expand my experiences in this lifetime? So I find those very exciting questions. And I offer those questions to you as well, regardless of what age you are, regardless of what season of life you're in, because We can always get curious about how to reinvent ourselves. And we can always be curious and lean into change and not fear change. Change, honestly, is inevitable in life. And the sooner you get comfortable with change, that just that friction that people feel sometimes when anything starts to change, it dissipates. It dissipates. To be able to accept what is in the present moment takes away the resistance. Therefore, if change makes you feel anxious, if you battle with anxiety or just feelings of just a little bit of unrest, panic, anxiety, worry, overwhelm, a lot of times those come from the resistance to what is. I'm going to say that again. A lot of those feelings of anxiety and unrest or overwhelm, worry, those are stirring because of our resistance to what is, or the need to have it all figured out, which is also kind of a little bit of control, the need to control the outcome. And when you can just relax and kind of detach from the outcome, not forcing the outcome, when you can disengage from that a little bit, then you are going to not have that resistance there. And therefore, it's not going to elevate that feeling of anxiousness and overwhelm. So know that change is part of life. And you could look at it as a negative, or this is what I'm trying to get through on this episode is, or you can look at change as a positive. You can look at changes that evolve in life as opportunities for you to have more expanded experiences in this lifetime. And we can either resist those experiences, which is going to give us that tension feeling, right? When we resist anything, we're causing that friction. But if we don't resist and we just, again, accept what is, lean into change, there is so much possibility on the other side of that. So much possibility on the other side of change. So much possibility on the other side of reinventing yourself. Again, I'm not talking about a whole life overhaul. It might just be a couple things in your life that you want to adjust. So don't be fearful of that. To go ahead and lean into that. Don't fear reinventing yourself. In your one lifetime, you can have unlimited experiences if you so choose. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast episode on all the reasons why you don't want to fear reinventing yourself. So drop me your comments. I love to see your comments, questions, ratings, reviews. Keep them coming. And I will wrap this up and I will talk to you next week. And I will be a year older by the time you hear this. So anyways, go make your week fabulous. Talk to you soon. I can